Welcome to Two Who's Review, the 2024 Christmas episode. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
and we are joined by Sam once again.
Welcome
Star
back.
Trek Nemesis sucked fucking ass.
I'm glad we got the resolution to that.
Fucking
But,
terrible. You know the worst
no,
part? It
What's
was
that?
the second best one overall still.
Of
It
the
was
movies.
fucking garbage. Of the TNG movies.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Since last recording, I've now also watched all of the original series movies, and
Right.
those are all pretty good.
Okay.
Even 5, which people say isn't great. And it was the weakest one, but it's still fine.
Was the first one any good?
Yeah, it's a little slow in parts, but it feels like a Star Trek plot, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, we're off to an appropriate start, and for the rest of this episode, we'll be discussing, ideally anyway, the
That's
Doctor
what you
Who.
think.
Yeah, I know. I was quick to correct myself. I know that you are like, if I, you're the last person who will stay on topic if I specifically tell anyone to stay on topic.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll be talking about the 2024 Doctor Who special, Joy to the World, written by Stephen Moffat. It's the first time a Christmas special has been written by not the showrunner. It's his 50th either script or story for the show. I can't remember which of the two it is. And he's said that this is the last thing he'll ever do for the show, but he's said that before, so it's hard to say.
Really?
I think so, yeah. I think I heard that he was like, I'll come back for Russell's new season, do a script, and then I'll just leave him to it. But then he was asked to do the Christmas special, and he went, well, that'll put me to 50. Okay, sure, I'll do that as well.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes down the line.
I think it's probably one of those things where he means it at the time he says
yes.
it,
Yeah,
but then circumstances may change in the future.
exactly.
I
Well,
mean,
at
no
the
one
very
thought.
least,
Sorry, go ahead.
at the very least, he hasn't written anything for next season. So
Yeah.
I mean, no one thought that Murray Gold and RTD were going to come back, and yet here we are.
no, absolutely not. So this episode, this Christmas special, I've been seeing a lot of mixed reactions online regarding where people stand on this story. Some people said they hated it, some people said they loved it. I am very curious as to how this conversation is going to go. I personally think that this story, it's kind of a best and worst showcase for Moffat's Doctor Who writing. It's got a lot of the things that make his stories really great, and it's got a lot of the things that make his stories really frustrating at times.
It's funny you say that, because first off, I can think of far more frustrating Moffat stories to me.
Of course, yeah.
At the very least, those, some of his Moffatisms, shall we say, they appear in much more frustrating forms than other episodes.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I actually quite enjoyed this story. Maybe there's a couple of flaws here and there, and maybe there's stuff I'm not seeing, and I do kind of see what you mean, in that there are some Moffatisms that he, at the very least, is taking a bit of a risk on. But I generally enjoyed it. I thought that the use of the sentimentality, which I've previously been very critical of with Moffat, it felt pretty appropriate. It felt quite well earned. Maybe, every single instance of it maybe wasn't landing, but generally speaking, it was good. And I liked the weird, twisty plot. I'm glad it was actually an hour long, because there was a fair bit I think Moffat had to cram in there, and I think he gave it each part a decent amount of space.
Well, I think that for the most part, I agree. It was an episode I was really, really, really enjoying quite a lot, and in ways that I wasn't expecting. But then I personally think that, again, it maybe I watched it 2 hours ago, so it's mainly the way the story wraps up and ends that I'm kind of like, I don't think it holds up very well by the ending. I think there are a couple of things that he kind of half-baked in a way that he loves to do, and I don't know, we'll get to it when we discuss the
Yeah.
ending properly. Sam, what did you think about this story overall?
Yeah, I think largely I agree with you both. It was overall pretty good. It didn't blow me away or anything, but I was like, at the end of the day, it's just like I'm watching Doctor Who and I'm enjoying it,
Hmm.
which is not something to be taken for granted these days. So, like, yeah,
No,
like
certainly not.
Yeah, what a
there
miracle.
were definitely, I think, maybe not pacing. There were a couple of like structural things,
Yeah,
where I was just like, I don't necessarily have problems with what is happening, but like the way it's playing out in the episode is like a little clunky here and there. And like, I agree with you, Cuff. The ending wasn't quite as like it didn't fumble, but it wasn't a perfect dismount cut type of thing, you know. So
sure. Yeah.
Would you both say the
Um.
ending was a bit rushed?
Well.
yeah, yeah,
Well. Here's.
rushed is a as good a word as any, I guess.
I suppose so because I don't want to jump straight to the ending, but it kind of feels like we're on that path.
Hmm.
Um.
I'm. I
So
mean, at the very least, you can see what he's trying to do with the ending, right?
I can see what he's trying to do, and I can't believe that of all
Yeah.
things, I can't believe that you're the one, Fitz, who's sort of siding with Moffat, kind of here, where it's me and Sam are having issues, and you're trying to get to the bottom of them. But okay, let's just discuss the ending because it's what we're
Yeah,
talking
sure.
about
Sure,
right
let's
now.
get into it.
So this like star sphere or whatever it was called,
Starseed. Yeah.
star seed, yes. First of all, it reminded me a lot of the MacGuffin from Doctor's Daughter, um, which isn't necessarily a criticism, but it's just a curiosity that
Hmm.
that's where my mind went anyway. But first of all, the moment that Joy kind of bonds with it in a way that we haven't been told is a thing that can happen.
Hmm.
Um, right off the bat, I'm like, okay, this is a bit of a turn. I hope you can justify this, Moffat.
Yeah.
It's clear that this is the whole. He's trying to do the whole. Oh, a companion is going to take the reins here and save the day because the Doctor is in some way unable to. But like, the episode doesn't really tell us why the Doctor is unable to. Like,
Or even.
the Doctor presents us, the audience, and Joy with an answer. Right? He's going to use his TARDIS to
Mm.
get the star seed into
Mhm.
space where it won't cause any damage to any planets. Great.
Mhm.
And then we're shown nothing about the Doctor's plan going wrong. We're not shown any reason why the TARDIS isn't able to land. And all of a sudden, Joy decides this is the only way it has to be done. And right from there, I'm like, okay, please, Moffat, please give me a line, to make this work.
Mm.
But he doesn't, and he doesn't really give us a concrete explanation at the time why Joy thinks this is the only option or even the best option. I think he kind of wins it back when we see Joy's mum and we see her
Mm.
sort of becoming one with Joy in the end. He kind of wins it back there, but even then, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. It's just a bit, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's
if the wording of it had been more like, uh, trust me, this is the way it has to be,
mm,
instead of this is the only way.
Hmm.
I was just like, no, trust me, if we do it this way, things will work out better, and I will like turn into space energy and be with my mom, who is also space energy again. Like, you
yeah.
don't want to just say that outright, obviously, but if you just like alluded more to like, no, this is the option that I want to happen, as opposed to, no, there's no time, there's no other way.
Or
You
even
just
if there was
yeah.
a line like, if the starseed bursts naturally, Villain Guard can still use it. But if I become the star, there's a way I'll be able to prevent them from doing that, like blasting out sunspots whenever they try to,
Yeah.
use me,
Yeah.
anything like
I,
that. Because like that would have been, I think, another step in the right direction because that would have been preventing Villain Guard, who have like been this weird presence throughout like Doctor Who, even for a while now, and like even from Boom, from this, we're not really shown that there's been any consequences on their behalf. Like we're not shown them losing. So it would have been nice to have like
Well,
one
'cause,
little
like,
thing of
it's
like, oh, here we go. This is something that they've been killing people for this thing, and Joy's going to make sure they can't use it, and it's all going to be for nothing on their part. Like that'll be a
because
win,
like
I think.
it's this weird thing of like because like the first time they mentioned is the empty child and Dr.
Yes,
Dances, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
yes,
And in that mention they're like, oh no, the doctor's already beaten them forever and they don't exist anymore.
yeah.
But then also it's a time travel show, so they do exist in the past where you go to a lot and still have to deal with things they've done. And it's just like, because at the one hand you were like, well, yeah, they keep causing problems, but he'll get them eventually because he already has.
Well, is it
But then you're like, okay,
is it
but it
just
hasn't happened yet for
well?
these people, and they're still being affected by it. It's
Does the Doctor say he destroyed the entire company or just like one of their factories?
I think it's just the one, right? Because Jack sort of, like he himself mentions, it's like I was on the planet factories of Villigard or something like that,
well, like I don't think
and the Doctor
it's
says,
not
"Yeah, no, I
explicit,
visited
but
it
I'm
once."
pretty sure Jack is like, oh well, you can't get them anymore because like
Yeah,
they're
right. I
all
remember that.
gone,
Yeah,
and Doctor's like, yeah, yeah, I know, that was me, I did that.
but I guess if
Weird.
it's just the one factory, or maybe if it's like the main factory, maybe there's still other outliers. I mean, if we assume it's some
Oh,
sort of
Like
big
not even that. Like I
galactic
say, even if
conglomeration.
he has done that in year 5,000 or whatever,
Hmm.
anytime he goes to year
oh, hang on a minute.
4999, then they're still around technically.
Well, this is
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I just looked up Villain Guard on the TARDIS wiki.
Hmm.
This is so bizarre. Like, okay. So, this is going to be a leap. But does anyone remember Twice Upon a Time all that well?
Yes.
Refresh me what that one was.
That's Capaldi's final story, where it's him and the first
Okay, yeah,
Doctor.
yeah, yeah. I thought so, but yes.
Yeah. Something that you might not remember about that is that at a certain point they go to talk to Rusty, a good Dalek.
Yes, I
Who's
do remember that.
just an amazing character overall and really well utilized in the stories they've been in.
Mm.
But that
Sorry, is that a
planet.
joke? I genuinely can't tell.
Oh no, it is. It is.
Let's say. Anyway.
But the planet that Rusty is on, it's like this completely wrecked planet. It's Villengard.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's the
Right.
planet.
That was like another throwaway thing.
Yeah. There's been a heaps of just like throwaway Villengard things, and it's only really with the 15th Doctor, bizarrely, that they've been brought to the forefront.
Mm.
Yeah, it's. But yeah,
Are they
it does
in?
look like it. Okay, so here, I was looking for the specific reference to the factories of Villengard from Doctor Dances. In the last months of the Great Time War, the War Doctor enlisted the help of Dorian Maldavar to help him destroy the 13 weapons factories of Villengard before the Dalek fleet arrived to take control of them.
Hmm.
Using a molecular fruit bomb, the Doctor transformed the factories into palm trees, creating a banana grove.
Right.
That is a lot of lore that is a.
To be
Would have
fair,
been.
he does mention the banana grove in
I know.
Empty Child.
But like incorporating like the fact that it was specifically John Hurt and it was part of the Time War specifically, like he doesn't even go after the
Yeah.
factory because they're weapons manufacturers. Sorry, this takes place in a comic called The Whole Thing's Bananas, which just excellent stuff.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
God.
okay.
What? I'm not even.
Anyway, but yeah,
Question
like
that.
Yeah. Like I mean sorry, just
I'd say
before we move on.
that
I
sounds
do
ridiculously silly, but it's Doctor Who. What are we really
yeah,
talking about there?
yeah. Like I do like the idea of like there is an enemy of the Doctor that is already defeated and has
I
been
do. Yeah,
defeated for ages, but
sure.
like they keep cropping up. But like I say, when your show is a time travel show, that's
Yeah.
kind of hard to do unless it's like something. I mean, I guess
Well, it would be great if the.
retroactively putting it in the Time War
Mm,
does kind of fix that problem, But
Well, it would
like
be
when
great if
that
we could
happens in a
explore that,
comic
right?
that may or may not be canon anyway, then like, eh,
Well, it would be great if we could explore that even. Like, if there's an episode where it's like, oh, the main weapon, the main villain is like villain guard themselves. They're not like not their machinery, not a briefcase that's part of their machinations, like the actual villain guard corporation. And the Doctor has to go, I can't really defeat them because I've already done that, and I can't change my own timeline. If I defeat them properly here, I can't defeat them properly earlier. Like it would be
yeah,
great to like see something like
Mm,
that happen. Even
mm,
um, I doubt it will because like
mm,
I I just don't see a different writer taking Villain Guard and running with it.
yeah,
They might. I mean, Broom was relatively well received based on the rest of season 14 rather. So maybe Villain
yeah.
Guard does become a thread that gets explored later on. But
I
anyway, on the
I will
whole,
say all this is not necessarily a knock
no,
against
yeah,
this episode. It's
no,
just
no,
certainly
no,
how
no, no, no.
Villain Guard has been used
It,
in the show in general.
and it's not
yep.
even the main criticism I have regarding the ending.
No.
It's just the way
Yeah,
that they present the only option being Joy fusing with the damn thing.
Mm. I would
Um,
like to see Moffat come back, even if it is just to get this whole Villain Guard thing explored more, or maybe resolved a little bit, because it looks like he's trying to build up to something here.
yeah, it does look. It doesn't seem like the kind of River Song thing where he's intentionally laid clues for him and only him to follow up on. It
Mind
just kind
you,
of seemed like it's just like
yeah.
one.
It's just like this is a name
mm,
that
I
mind
feel
you,
like if it
people
was
it's
would
not.
recognize if I bring it back again.
If
yeah,
he's not showrunner, though, I wonder if he was, would it be a bigger thing?
I
Would
do
he
kind of feel like it's if he was asked to do that, I feel like he would probably go, "Oh, this isn't that important. Someone else can do it. I don't have a plan."
sure? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as you
Or
say,
if he
that's not
if he was
really.
retroactively made showrunner, I'd think a weapons manufacturer is too small potatoes for his mystery
Yeah,
box style of
yeah,
storytelling.
that's also true.
Like
Yeah.
unless you're gonna do some plot where like, oh, actually the companion turned out to be the ghost of Villain God. The Villain God is the energy ball from inside the companion because they were actually born from the you know, standard Moffat plot structure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good lord. But as you say, that's not really like this whole Villain Guard business isn't quite the main issue. I think for me, it's more about Joy specifically in the way she sort of interacts with this piece of technology.
Mm.
And I say that even the ending I actually kind of enjoyed, but I wonder if that's mainly because the sentimentality, which is I think a key feature of it, it just by comparison to the way it manifests itself in other Moffat
Mhm.
stories, the fact that it's nowhere near as frankly frustrating or obnoxious as other stories. Maybe that's just why I'm thinking it's quite enjoyable, especially given how intense it gets, right? Because we've got
Oh yeah.
tragic backstory with Joy and her mother. We've got Mother
Mm.
and Joy and the other people essentially going to some kind of afterlife, and then we've got the Christmas quasi Jesus imagery at the end. Like, given Moffat's doing all of that, I was very surprised how unfrustrating that was, because that could have
Well,
been
Yeah.
really
Like, I don't think
but
it's supposed to be like necessarily overtly Jesus, but it's just like it's Christmas, a star.
yeah, but like
It,
well,
yeah.
you
I
know,
just
If
like you
you're
know what I
gonna
mean.
started
Like it could
using.
have been
draw a line
much
between the
more.
two, then you're like, okay, yeah, it's the one
Yeah,
over Bethlehem. The wise men follow. That's
it
fine.
it could have been more. The whole thing really could have been more obnoxious. So I don't know. I
Yeah, like
appreciate
it could have you
that a
could
bit.
have like really drawn some parallels and like Joy is like, I'm dying for all of your sins, Earth.
Yeah.
I also find it
Um.
amusing that in Moffat's last story, he drew a heavy line under the sand regarding faith, and now
Mm.
in this one, he's canonizing Jesus in some capacity.
Yeah, but then in the previous story, he kind of challenges the Doctor's
Yeah,
lack of
exactly.
faith. I don't know if that says anything about him. I'm not going to
He got
speculate on that,
he
but
got
it's
well,
just
he got a lot of backlash regarding the Doctor mocks people for blind faith thing because, of course, the show did. because the people who watch it sometimes don't have a lot of media literacy regarding things like
Yeah, I'd be interested to see
political
what they
issues.
think about, this analogy.
Yeah,
Oh God. But I think the thing with me is it is the way Joy interacts with this technology, because that idea of her having some kind of a special link, or I don't know, that there's something that she does specifically to um make it, work the way she wants it to. That's a pretty decent idea. Um, and weirdly enough, in other Moffat stories, certainly in Moffat run seasons, there'd be a lot more effort put into that. I'm honestly, there's a bit of a, I don't know, just kind of an impossible girl feel to that sort of idea. Um, and I personally wouldn't want that idea taken too far, because I find that sort of weird, sort of messianic quality for characters to be very frustrating. But at the very least, if you want it to work in this individual story, yeah, I would want just a bit more exploration of it. And I get that he doesn't have a lot
Yeah.
of room because he's already
well,
pushing it to a 1 hour running time. But
yeah, that's the
again, you
thing,
you
right?
can see what he's doing, but it just doesn't. It's just not
Well, that brings me to
translating, I think, as well as he wants it to.
I think the main issue with that is that bizarrely, and like again, like for the caliber of casting of Nicola Coughlan, I think is how you pronounce her surname, and she was the big pull for this, like in a similar like Kylie Minogue kind of way, but
Mhm.
she's not in the episode nearly as much as I thought she would be.
Yeah,
And
I think that was
No,
probably biggest problem was that she felt really underutilized.
well, yeah,
And
but I
like
mean, we don't.
it
My main
because
problem with
it's
it is like we don't have enough time to get to
no.
know her by that point for us to
yeah,
like really
exactly.
feel not just the weight of the sacrifice, but also like knowing like if she is the kind of person who would make this choice, right? I think that's why that's another
Yeah.
reason why
Like
it all feels that half
it
baked to me because she's only in the episode for like half of the time at most, and for a lot of that, she's possessed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
that's true.
difficult enough as it is to have one of these like one-time Christmas special companions feel
Mm,
fleshed out when you only have one episode to do it all in.
yeah,
Um, and when she's not in a significant chunk of the episode, or significant chunks even,
yeah,
that becomes that much harder.
I think
Because
for
like
what we.
I think like
Sorry,
by
go.
the end I was like, okay, it's a little surface level still, but like I've got a handle on what your deal is as a character. I
yeah,
wish there was a bit more depth to it, but like for like that first couple of scenes, I was just like, I'm not really getting a lot of personality
I
here.
mean,
And like you say, Cuff, it's not helped by the fact that she very quickly gets possessed by the suitcase, and that becomes her personality for another like 5 to 10 minutes after that.
yeah,
I think for what we got, I did enjoy it. A lot of it I think has to do with Nicola Coughlan's performance.
yeah,
I really really love the bit where
Yeah,
the doctor's speaking to her. I think they're in the elevator, and she's got that really creepy smile because she's being possessed. But then
yeah,
slowly the
yeah.
doctor sort of breaks through her. Really great performances.
I
Very
agree. Yeah,
chilling. And I also really, as disturbing as it is, I really found it compelling seeing the doctor go, kind of almost going all sort of Hannibal Lecter psychoanalysis on her by sort of
yeah,
telling her who she was. Um, Pretty disturbing, but very compelling nonetheless. And it does give a lot of, like, it gives the Doctor quite a lot of layers. It reminds me of a similar scene in The Curse of Fenric, um, and sort of adds to sort of that layer of darkness and complexity with the Doctor, and that's great. But, and this kind of goes back to your 2 points, that says more about the Doctor than it does about Joy, really, doesn't it? Because I mean, we're
mm,
being told who she is, and like it all comes together and makes sense. And she herself basically says, "Yeah, you were right." But again, that's more of a reflection of the Doctor, because he's being more participatory in that scene than she is, because she's partly because she's possessed, and when she's not possessed, she's just kind of emotionally breaking down, which is dramatically weighty, but you wonder if there's more, if there should be more. Um, Not to mention the fact that she has to kind of move out of the way for this admittedly interesting and very enjoyable, but still slightly strange meandering with another character for like the first half of the middle third of the story.
Hmm.
So it's weird, and it's not even a situation where you could say, oh well, just because she was advertised as like a main companion, that doesn't necessarily mean she has to be, because even in the episode near the beginning, she's kind of set up as this sort of main companion. So it's a little bit, it's weird. I'll give you that. It's quite strange.
Yeah, I think that is a big problem as well.
Mm,
I did flag at the start that I enjoyed most of this episode, and I am really only
mm,
focusing on the bits I didn't like as much. But it until the ending, of course, where it is like just being told what her deal is, and that's
Hmm.
never as strong as being shown it. Of course, eventually we are shown it, and it's kind of it's very heavy for the show, especially for a Christmas
Yeah.
episode, to address something
mm,
that, like, at this point it's 2024. COVID lockdowns feel like they happened ages ago, but
mm.
it wasn't that long,
Yeah.
and
No, it's still
there are
pretty
still
real.
there are heaps of people who were incredibly affected by everything that went down. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I mean, people.
to put it in a
I
Christmas special.
saw I saw a quote from Moffat saying part of the reason he included that was he was doing it to sort of like have a go at uh in his words specifically like Tory rule breakers
All right,
who were
yeah,
just like it was just like this is what actual people who had to follow the rules were going
yeah.
through, you
I
fuckers.
mean, look, yeah, a lot of people's lives were devastated by it. There were millions of
Mm,
people who died. You know, amongst our friends, we were all very, I mean, relatively lucky not to experience the worst of it, even though some of us
mm,
had it. But even just speaking personally, you guys know I spent 2020 going crazy, in a self-imposed isolation because I'm
yeah.
immunocompromised, and that drove
No,
me
my mom had
nuts.
the exact same problem.
Uh, yeah. It
Mm.
was bad. It was really, it was awful. So you're right, Cuff, in saying that it's pretty heavy. Like, you've already got the, oh, I wasn't there for my mom when she was dying, um, and I'm still recovering from that grief, which is heavy enough. But to have the real world, um, sort of scenario, and the commentary coming in, is pretty intense. I
I wonder
I
if
kind of admire that Moffat's willing to take that risk, and
what
even though it's a Christmas special, I'm not against that. But as you
hmm
kind of implied, does it really work?
I
Um,
wonder if, and I've only seen the episode once, as I said, but I wonder if on a
so,
rewatch I'll be like, okay, now that I know it's coming, maybe there'll be like a couple of things that I'll pick up on, that make it
mm,
a bit more palatable for me by the end. And certainly there is that element that I haven't really considered yet, where like there is that whole like I was following the rules, and so like I couldn't be there and I couldn't be
mm,
with her in the final moments. But
mm,
if I do this, then we'll never have to be apart.
mm,
Mm,
And again, if any of
yeah.
that language was in there from the earlier speech, then I might be like, oh, okay, I can see you as a character. This is kind of being the thing you want to do. But again, like, there's also that thing where it's like, well, before Moffat saves it for when we actually see it, so you spend that entire time going, why is she doing this? But second,
Mm.
we're never told it's a thing that the Starseed can actually do.
Yeah, that's, I think, the biggest problem with me. We're not clarified on how this technology works. There's an implication that almost anything could happen because the Doctor keeps saying, this is no one's really done it before. It's only been explored in theory. We don't know what could happen, and maybe Moffat's sort of resting on the laurels of how bizarre Doctor Who can be in terms of world building. It's certainly not beyond the capacity of how strange the show can get. But given that the Starseed is such a pivotal part of the plot, I agree. I want more explanation. I want it to be integrated better. And the most frustrating part is I don't even think Moffat would need to do that much with it. I don't know what exactly he would have done because again, he's already stretching the runtime by making it about an hour. But there must have been something, right? Something that he could have done to say, oh yes, this. By the way, this starseed it can have this weird metaphysical connection to the universe and the memories of the people it absorbs or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think that issue specifically was what frustrated me the most about that ending.
Well, well, come to think of it, I mean, it's never overtly specified, but the previous time we've seen Villain Guard technology used was in Boom, which is another use of Villain Guard kind of like incorporating the psyches and the consciousnesses of the people that it's killed. So it's nice to see that as a consistent sort of technology. But what's also consistent is that those people can make the technology work for them. You know, the father soldier who kills Villain Guard with that
Oh
father,
yeah, by sort of
and now this time the not a dead person, but Joy being able to incorporate the technology to work for her.
and even the Silurian guy, whose name I forget, he said I think he spent like a year sort of integrating himself into like the technology of the briefcase to manipulate it. That
I
being
think that
said,
was
though,
I think that was the bellhop that the Doctor befriended, the guy who was
yeah.
like really
Oh yeah, pardon me. Yeah, no, you're right.
yeah, the guy who was incredibly
Trev.
focused on doing something right, which
Yeah, Trev.
he,
He wasn't
Trev, he
a it
was
wasn't a bellhop. He was the head of security.
head of security. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was
I
charming.
can't
He
remember
was
the
charming.
actor's name, but I like him. He was in Our Flag Means Death.
Ah,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Um, well, here's another thing about that, right? With them controlling the technology bit. So like it's basically very strongly implied that all these characters are sort of connected now. Their consciousnesses are connected. They're going into this weird metaphysical afterlife, whatever it is. But
hmm.
you wonder, is that because of Villengard's technology specifically? Like, is it the briefcase or is it the starseed itself? And if it is the starseed like its own form of consciousness? Is it like a weird experiment? Again, the issue is that the concept is very interesting, and I like the use of the technology. It's just not explored nearly enough, and
Yeah.
it doesn't even work on a whole. Oh well, ambiguity is a good thing because in this case it isn't, because the emotional payoff relies on that technology and that world building being solid, and
Well, I
it
do
just
have a
isn't.
feeling that now that I've made the connection to Boom and what we've seen the technology capable of, plus the like again not having to sit for that 3 minutes or so with this whole why are they doing this only to get that scene and be like, oh, that's why they're doing this. I do
Mm,
have a feeling that it will hold up slightly more when you know what's coming.
yeah, I mean I've watched it twice. I don't think like I noticed issues with like smaller issues I think with the story on a
Mhm.
second viewing, but that wasn't really one of them. So I don't know if I can
Okay,
really speak to that. You'll have to, I guess, watch
sure.
it again, see for
Yeah,
yourself.
I mean, I don't know. Is the at the very least, the more we've talked about the wider implications and the what could it mean, what does it mean, like why does it happen, kind of thing. I am softening a bit on the ending as a whole. I don't think it's perfect, like I said, but I think that's now mainly down to the fact
Yeah.
that Joy wasn't given enough characterization or depth to justify her making the choice, rather than why it happens for the story.
Yep. I
Yeah.
think
Like it
hmm,
it feels like the emotional through line of the episode is more about the Doctor
Yes.
yeah,
than Joy,
it's a very
which
Doctor
like
centric story.
if
It is.
if it was like a regular episode in a season and she was a regular companion would be fine, but when this is her only episode and that
And it's called
ending
Joy to the World.
is so dependent on her characterization making sense, it's
Yeah.
like I don't hate what they did with the Doctor in this episode, but
I
No.
actually really
maybe
like
your
it.
priorities Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think the worst thing I can say about it is it's a little bit character regression-y in order to be able to do that stuff in some ways.
I
But
mean,
like again, that's not a problem with this episode specifically. That's been happening again and again, over and over, no matter who's in charge. So,
Yeah.
mm,
Well, I was going to bring this up. Like, we've been talking
mm,
about it's a shame that Joy is sidelined for so much of it, given that a lot of the payoff regards her. But I'm going to be honest, my favorite sequence in the entire story is when the Doctor has to live in that hotel for a whole year. I
yeah, yeah,
really enjoyed
yeah,
that
that,
entire
that's
yeah,
sequence.
yeah. It was
that's
good.
that's clearly the you put a lot of points were put into that one
Yeah.
as opposed to other areas.
Yeah,
Even when you consider that story wise, it solves a problem that didn't need to be created in the first place. Like, if that 4-digit passcode thing didn't come up, the story
mm,
continues as normal
Yeah,
and you get an extra 15-20 minutes to develop Joy. But that being said, I do like what they did with it regarding like this small London hotel. Anita is someone who I got really endeared to really quickly, and I'm really
yeah,
happy that
mm,
she and the Doctor had a good send off like together.
yeah.
Um it's and also as like I don't think we've ever gotten your opinion on on this episode specifically, Sam. But myself and Fitz have for a long time talked about how Power of Three sucks and isn't good.
yeah, it does.
And this felt like a better Power of Three. It's another Doctor
Yeah,
sticking
no, I
around and
thought I
being a
thought the
human
exact
for a
same
year.
thing while watching it.
Yeah, it's better. It's just seeing the Doctor live a life, bond with this one person who just seems like charmed enough by what the Doctor's saying and doing that they don't really think about the physics of it all, which is great.
Yeah.
Like
Like
I
she humors him for a bit, and so by the time it gets to the point where she actually believes him when she gets
mm,
recruited to the Time Hotel, it still makes sense. There's
yeah, I
nothing
agree.
in that characterization that really contradicts itself or doesn't work. And that's really great because, again, he's kind of taking a risk by doing that. Because it would be easy to not put enough legwork into that characterization, but there's enough for it to really be satisfying, which is kind of great.
I
Um,
think it's also amazing that inadvertently this is Moffat putting his foot down and saying, "See, Chris Chibnall, this is how you do it."
God. Also, something that I kind of like in terms of overall, and it's definitely true with the Doctor's friendship with Anita, but also with that last little conversation with Joy. Um,
Hmm.
once we get to the 14th Doctor, right? This is the therapized Doctor who gets to live out, the quiet life they always wanted. What we're seeing in this story is the process of, like, the therapeutic process of the Doctor working through his emotions and learning maybe to trust people a little bit. And then that being reaffirmed with Roy saying, that, you need to go and make some friends. I quite like that, and it's one of the better examples of the sentimentality used here because it doesn't
Hmm.
feel heavy-handed. It doesn't feel forced in any way. It feels very earned and just very sincere. And I really appreciate the story for doing that.
And it does raise the issue, a brief thing, where it's like you mentioned, Sam, it does kind of walk back some of the Doctor's therapy in order to make it happen. But I kind of let it slide
Mm,
because, like, this is like, for what we've seen anyway, it's immediately post the departure of a companion. And
Mm,
yeah,
if he's going to backslide at any point, it's going to be after he's just said goodbye to one of his good friends.
yeah.
yeah. Like I said, it's not the first time this has happened. It won't be the last.
No.
When you have a show that goes for this long around a character,
Mm.
they can't learn their lessons
Well,
and still keep going for 60 years.
I don't even.
So
I mean
like
that's definitely true.
there have to sometimes be times when they're like, and then he kind of just like goes back to being this way so that we can like regeneration is kind of a good excuse for that in a way because they're like, well, yeah, sure, that one got over his issues, but now we've got this one. And he's got a whole new bunch of shit going on that
Yeah.
he's trying to
Yeah, it's
figure out.
sort of a semi-personality reset. But um, I agree, Sam, that yeah, in a show as long as Doctor Who, it's the same with stuff like the world building. You can't expect it all to be consistent, and it is kind of frustrating when people say, "Oh, what
Yeah.
about this episode in the 1977? Why didn't you remember?" You know, same issue. I think. Um, so yeah, the Doctor can't be expected to be consistent or to evolve even consistently. But the thing with this story is, I don't. The Doctor kind of regressing. I don't think that's too accidental. I think there is something deliberate about that. Maybe it is partly because, as you say, Cuff, we've just come off a companion departure. But if this is a needing to relearn these sort of social skills and sort of psychological skills, it still feels quite earned. It doesn't feel like just a clumsy
Yeah, it's
kind of
far from the
step back
worst
to me.
example.
And I think that's particularly shown in again the very effective but very disturbing scene where he really sort of attacks Joy for her, apparent failings in her life, because again the Doctor's done that sort of thing before, and it is not uh, certainly unbelievable for the Doctor to use kind of mind games, I suppose, with their companions. But when you compare it to, especially something like Space Babies, where he says, maybe you can correct me on this line, Sam, but he says something like, "Yeah, no one's ever born wrong," right? That seems to be
Yeah.
kind of a contradiction to that. But again, it feels deliberate, and there's enough. Um, it's weird. It's deliberate, but there's also enough ambiguity, so we think, oh, yeah, he obviously wasn't being serious. But then we also think it's still kind of grim that he's able to tap into that side of himself. So the point is, all these things sort of look like regressions, and I can't rule out the possibility that it's a lack of oversight. But I do think there's a surprising amount of deliberation in them, and I actually really appreciate how the Doctor's characterized in this story for those reasons.
I mean, I agree. Just to play devil's advocate, I would point out that it can be a deliberate thing and also just not a good idea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's the case here,
No.
but like, it yeah, you can make a deliberate choice to regress a character so that they have to learn the same lesson over again because you've been running for so long that you're like, at a certain point, we just need to start recycling emotional beats and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it's in how it's done
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Sure.
not how deliberate it is.
Sure.
Mm. So
Um.
more an issue of execution as opposed to intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Um. One of the first things that stood out to me about this story, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first time we've been shown a version of Earth itself that is like neo-futurist, like with
Um,
all the big like sprawling metropolis cities and the hologram towers and all the technology? Because we've seen it on other planets where where the people have colonized, like New Earth,
Mm.
but
Mm.
like I don't
at
think we've
least
seen
post revival,
the
maybe.
planet.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about it. Like we jumped forward to like the year 4000, and I was like, "Whoa, hang on a minute! This is new for the show. We're seeing
Yeah.
London, the year 4000, and it's got this big like futurist kick. Like this is new."
I feel like there has to have been examples in the classic series where they did similar stuff, but even then, if they did, I can't immediately remember them. And certainly for post revival, who yeah, this might be the first time, because like most,
The
as you
only
say, most of
examples of
the
like revival who doing that would be like very near future.
Yeah, because
yeah,
in the second
Like
season, there was an episode
uh
set in 2012 for the Olympics. That was Fear Her. That's the
yeah,
only one
but
I can
wasn't
really think of.
Dalek was also set in like
It
the
was,
mid
yeah, same year.
2010s.
Yeah, the
despite
same year I
coming
think
out
as his
2005.
opera.
So like it's the
Yeah.
past now.
Sure.
But or even the Dalek invasion of Earth was set in the year 2000,
Yeah.
apparently.
Okay.
So yeah, but in terms of like really far into the future on Earth, um, yeah, I don't think there are. If there are other examples of it, again, I can't think of any. None of them are really springing to mind. Yeah, I don't know.
And
It's interesting.
I like the of all the character deaths and what they imply about the world itself, I'm glad that the death of the Silurian was given the most weight
Yeah, I love that
because
scene.
Mhm.
like
That's so.
because initially, and this is also based on the way Silurians have been treated across the many years they've been a part of the show. But like when you first see him, and it's the year 4000, you have that brief like excitement, right? Wait, have they woken up? Have we worked it out? Are we living in harmony with Silurians finally? And then when you learn, oh no, this one just walked through one
It's
of the
just a
time
one-off.
portals. Yeah, and the Silurians
But
are still
like
very much endangered, and this one is now dying. And there's so much more. Like it's more of a gut punch when you learn that, and you're like, oh no, this is still terribly depressing.
Hmm.
that being said, he does talk about how like, oh yeah, I just kind of
Yeah,
ended up here by accident, but everyone was cool with it.
that's
So it is
true.
there is
Yeah.
kind of like this hopeful aspect of like, well, one day when the Silurians do wake up,
Mm.
it's probably going to go a lot better.
You think so?
So
Hopefully.
even though his circumstances are still pretty tragic on the whole, there
Hmm.
is that sort of like hopeful element.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. I um. I found that scene very compelling. Part of it was because of Trudy Gartwa's performance, which was
Yes.
very,
Mm.
very intense. But just even the way it's written, like, what is it? The small bit where he's like you did it for those guys, like stay alive for them. It just feels right for me, right? Yeah, it just,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Shruti
I
Gatwa,
just found it very compelling.
he continues to be incredibly impressive in this role.
Yeah.
I'm always compelled by him whenever he's on screen. Like it always feels like he's giving so much to the character.
Hmm. It's
Um,
wonderful to see, once again, a great performance paired with really good writing.
yeah,
Because I think both said this with Rogue, like he's sort of hitting a lot of the um dramatic beats that we'd expect of a Doctor. But he's doing it in his own way, and there's something really special about that. And this story, I think, is no exception.
yeah. I'm like, it's just again, it just feels so good to say this, but I'm very happy about the future of the show. Like, I'm very excited to see more of this show for
Yeah.
the first time in a while, and it's really really excited to say that. It's a lot of it is just down to him as an actor, and
Yes.
the
Yeah.
fact that
I'd
more
agree.
often than and the fact that like more often than not, which again is rare to say from recent Doctor Who years, he's given really good material to work with.
Yeah.
Mm.
Again, it's that perfect combo of performance and writing. Because as much as certainly you and I, Koff, we really love something like Dot and Bubble, and the ending in particular. What really sells it is his performance at the end there.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, certainly this story is no exception. He's very compelling whenever he's on screen. And the only moments that I found, I think, slightly frustrating don't come down to his performance. It comes down to some of Moffat's writing and his Moffatisms. Like the bit, I understand what he's saying with this bit, but the bit where they put like the mansplaining reference in it, like don't get me wrong, that's true. What the Doctor says about when the Doctor's in the rooms, like what mansplain central or something like that. That's true. But I'm like, is there not? There has to be like a effective or interesting way of expressing that, even in a joke. Although I guess if it's a joke, it's not as bad. But still, that sort of got to me a little bit. And then this is a really small thing, but when the Doctor says, "Oh, I need a rope. Where did I see a rope?" and then he comes back for a second, he says, "Oh, I'm really good with ropes," and I'm like, Okay. Yep, we're doing this, are we, Moffat? We're doing the classic. Ooh, look at me! I'm the Doctor. I'm such a strange man. You know.
I mean,
I'll ruin the episode, of course. But
he defeated
there's
Sutek with kind of a rope.
yeah, but
Mm.
like the fact that he said it in that way, like you know what I mean, Puff. Like Moffat's done this stuff before,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it doesn't impress me when it happens generally. It didn't impress me when it
it's
happens
nowhere
here.
near as bad as, but I can see how it would remind someone of I wear a fez now. Fezzes are cool.
Yes, yes, it does. But yes, it's not even close to being that frustrating. I can definitely attest to that. But yeah, it's just again these little Moffatisms. But um, I don't know, and maybe this is a shitty thing to say, but I've touched on this before. But Moffat often works best, I think, when he's reined in for a number of reasons, right? Part of it is because he's very ambitious and he's very concept heavy, very concept driven writer, and that's shown in this story. But also the smaller things, a lot of his mannerisms with his dialogue, especially the way he uses comedy, in particular in his era, I find to be incredibly frustrating. But here, it even when it is frustrating, it's kept to a minimum, which I'm quite appreciative of. So that even though we've got these tiny little lines which are a little, kind of lame for me, they're really not that much of a focus in the story. Like, and given that we spent a good deal of time talking about how, um, Joy and her relationship to the Starseed didn't work, these things seem kind of trivial in context. So,
Sure. The Time Hotel, and we've talked about it a bit, but it's a really neat concept. This I was initially worried, but when they made the clarification of, oh no, okay, the rooms are only available when no one else is in them,
hmm,
like just that one thing, I'm like, oh okay, that fixes any world-breaking problems I might have had with this as an idea.
sure.
But I think it's cool. I think they use it pretty well, especially like with the whole planting the seed in the past and then jumping a time door to let it to when it's grown so that they can speed up the process. It's used really well in that regard.
Mm.
Um, did they ever explain who built the treehouse in the Cretaceous era?
No, but I assumed it was like maybe
Presumably the hotel did.
yeah, the staff,
Yeah,
like they must have.
yeah. I mean,
It's like this
It's
is
like
the Cretaceous suite.
I guess that
Kind of
makes sense.
funny.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
small thing though. They and you would only know this if you had the subtitles on, but they specifically say that there's sounds of birds and monkeys in the background, and I'm like, seems a bit anachronistic.
No.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
that's
this
not how
brings
that
us to
works.
Yeah,
this
since we're
brings
in
us
this
to
theme, this the
yes.
reason I am here, a dinosaur showed up for like 30 seconds,
Well,
and that is
again,
the bit now.
once again, you were the one that said this. We didn't.
Yeah, because
We're not putting you in a dinosaur box.
I have to maintain the bit because you guys can't be trusted to be like, well, there was a dinosaur, so let's ask Sam if she wants to be on.
Okay, like, okay. So go ahead.
Yeah,
Let's get these
Uh,
change it.
anachronisms going.
uh, well, anachronisms, only the monkey. But T Rex looks bad. Don't look good. Bad looking T Rex.
In terms of the design of it or the CG.
A bit of both, honestly.
Hmm.
Right. Any specifics?
It's like it's very bulky in places it shouldn't be. Its hands are doing the bunny thing instead of facing inwards. It's
It's
too
too big.
big.
Yeah, like yeah, Moffat has
I'm
this
sorry.
problem,
So,
right? He did it in what was the episode? I think it was like Deep Breath or something, or
deep
no,
breath.
whatever.
Yeah.
Capaldi's first story
Yeah,
was
no,
way too
that
big
shit's
T
fucking
Rex. Like,
egregious. That T Rex is like 10 times bigger than it should be.
hmm.
It's
I'm
like a
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
small
Godzilla
Godzilla
size.
monster. That's not a fucking dinosaur.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, but like literally 2 days ago, I don't remember the context, but I was explaining to my partner the reason why I will forever know the T-Rex hands point inwards instead of down, it's because you have such a nitpick about it, and we've brought it up again literally 2 days later.
How did that come up?
I think that what was it? I think she and some of her friends had done some paintings, and one of them painted a dinosaur emoji in which,
Okay.
like, the hands were pointed downwards. I think that was it. Yeah,
Fair
but
enough.
it's so great that we got that immediately. I knew you would have been looking
Yeah.
at that as well.
Yeah. In fact,
I'm waiting
like
for the day when Doctor Who properly uses dinosaurs, or even just like the Mesozoic era in a story. Because like you could like there have been two main uses of dinosaurs in the show that I can think of, and not as like a cameo or like one-off
Yeah.
scenes. It's Invasion of the Dinosaurs and Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Neither of those are very accurate representations of what we now understand those animals to have been like.
Ironically enough, Invasion is probably more accurate
For the time, yeah.
for its time
yeah, I was gonna
I
say,
than
Sam, like,
agree.
Spaceship is.
No,
yeah,
I agree.
would you say, yeah, that it is more accurate? Man, that's
Although I do
unfortunate.
remember and there were size issues, but I do remember the raptors in that story having feathers.
Yeah,
Which
but it was like
isn't a lot, but it's something.
it was like that like specifically in like the early 2010s
Hmm.
when things were like, yeah, well, like we want to make them look like Jurassic Park though. So what we'll do is we'll give them like a tuft of feathers on the back of the head and the elbows, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
And
And
they're like,
ironically,
Has
no,
it been
no, you fucking pick a lane. Either
has it
say,
been
nah, fuck you,
confirmed?
we're doing Jurassic Park lizard monsters, or we're doing accurate ones.
Has it actually
None of
been
this
confirmed that
wishy-washy halfway shit.
has it actually been confirmed that a lot of dinosaurs, raptors especially, actually did have feathers all over their bodies, or is that
Oh
just
yeah, no, like
fully, completely.
explicitly, raptors were feathered. That is a
okay?
known fact of their biology at this point.
And I like that
There's
it's
like
the
there's like generally like feathers are mostly really only a thing for theropods, like proper feathers.
Hmm.
But even then, like opinions on how feathered something like, say, a T-Rex was are kind of like back and forth. And
Hmm.
like, even if it was, it probably wasn't like feathers. It was more just like a sort of like light downy
Yeah,
fluff
yeah, like down.
in certain
yeah.
places. But like raptors were like explicitly like bird-like, like feathered
Hmm.
wings, like not enough to fly, but like that
But
is the
wingish.
lineage that all modern birds came from.
Hmm.
And
So
I
can
do
they
like
have
that
like
you're making the Jurassic Park comparison, and ironically, Jurassic World is the thing that addressed it the best, where they said, "Look, if you wanted these things to be accurate, they'd all be covered in feathers, but you told us to add this DNA, make them look like this, make them look like that."
huh,
Like that one scene that
Yeah,
Doctor Wu has with I think Masrani, I think.
yes.
Yeah,
You didn't want accurate, you wanted more teeth.
yeah,
hmm.
exactly. So I love that that's the
um
one that addressed it the best, and then everything else is just like, oh, but Jurassic Park.
also just getting back to Doctor Who for a minute.
Of
The bit
course.
yeah. No, but the bit where the T Rex swallows the briefcase, does that like I should be able to remember this because I've watched it twice, but does that like amount to anything, or is it just
I mean, the briefcase takes over the T Rex. We don't really see
yeah, like yeah,
that take
but
effect
does
much. Although I will say when the T Rex when its eyes did that sideways blink thing, I did remember going, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah.
didn't they say it the doctor said like the T Rex would have like
It would have
spat it
either
up or
had it up or
secreted it or
spat it
something like
out.
that?
Basically all it amounted was the briefcase is now stuck in the Cretaceous period.
Yeah, yeah.
Therefore, it will now have
It
to
can
wait to get to the present day, which will be the time it needs to finish charging up its final smash.
Yeah, the T-Rex swallowing the briefcase helps progress Villain Guard's plan in a way the Doctor was hoping it wouldn't.
Yeah. Which,
I
like,
reckon it'll survive
strictly speaking, it could still, like, unless that hotel room is set for the end of the Cretaceous period, it could get like swallowed by a T-Rex, get to the modern day, and still be like, yeah, I still need like 2 million years because I got eaten
well,
70 million years ago.
We know that it happened to be at exactly the year 0001.
Yes. Which also, it isn't that inaccurate. Shouldn't it be 000?
I don't know. I mean, look,
I think it should be.
But there's
I
also
don't know enough
account,
about the biblical calendar to know if there was a year zero or not.
Well, there's also accounts of like, oh, Jesus was born in March.
Oh no, there was there was a year zero. Jack Black and Michael Cera made a terrible movie about it. That's a
well, there's the whole
reference
thing
for
of
like
like
two
the
people.
church taking this whole like the church taking
Yeah.
Christmas away from the pagans whole thing. So it
Yeah,
wouldn't
it
have
was
been the
Saturnalia
25th
and all that
anyway.
shit.
Come on, Cuff, you and I should know the answer to this.
I'm gonna ask Google. Most biblical scholars and ancient historians believe that his birth date is around 6 to 4 BC.
Right.
You can't
Okay,
put
well,
that in Doctor Who because people will go,
that's
what?
not the question we're asking. We're asking, does the calendar have a year zero? Does it
Okay,
go?
well, I mean,
Does it go -1 BC, 0 AD, 1 AD, or does it go straight from -1 to 1?
let's see. Year 0 does not exist in the Anno Domini calendar year system. There you go.
Okay.
Right.
All right. You
So
got
it
away
is.
with that one, Doctor Who. Your T-Rex still looks like dog shit.
And obviously, if you put the Star of Bethlehem at 6 BC, even if it's quote unquote historically accurate, you're going to get people going, wait, what?
Yeah, it's going to be confusing. Like putting, panning the
Hey,
camera up to the star over
immaculate
Bethlehem.
pregnancies last longer than normal ones.
Sure. Yeah, let's go with that.
It's like,
You gotta
yeah.
squeeze past that hymen. I hate that I
Anyway,
said that. That was an awful thing I said. Yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway, this is another small thing with the T-Rex. There was a tiny part of me. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but there was a tiny part of me where I thought maybe they're going to try for a slight bit of scientific inaccuracy because they'll have the accuracy, excuse me, because they'll have the doctor say, "Oh, it's been swallowed by like a Giganotosaurus. That's why it's so big." Yeah, that's not a real T-Rex. That's something bigger.
Wrong year.
Yeah. They were around much earlier in a different continent, and they're not that much bigger.
Fair enough.
Oh, hang on.
When people make a big deal about like Giganotosaurus, it's even bigger than T-Rex. It's like 2 to 3 foot taller.
But hang
Which,
on,
when you're already a 20-foot tall animal, is fucking nothing.
Sorry, hang on. This raises a more interesting question. How the fuck did the briefcase get from Montana to Bethlehem?
Continental drift.
That had already happened.
Yeah, no. I mean, it wasn't in the T-Rex for the whole 65 million years.
Well, exactly. That's
so
my
I guess
point.
we're just supposed to assume that at some point someone picked it up, walked to Bethlehem for a reason.
Yeah, maybe it was one of the
just
gifts
stayed
of the
there
Magi
until they died.
Did you say walk to Bethlehem?
Yeah.
From the middle of America.
Well, I mean, like, a person picked it up at a point in time where it was possible to go from America to Bethlehem. Whether it be by boat, by plane, by fucking space. No, not spaceship, because it would have ended up.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it like
you could get a boat.
Maybe the T-Rex digested it. It got suspended in coprolite for millions of years, and then there was like a rock slide, and then maybe it floated across the ocean, and then, or maybe it was just one of the gifts of the Magi.
Well, it can't have been. We see the Magi in that shot,
Oh, do we?
but
I didn't.
but well, I mean,
Well, we
there's
see
the
the
camels.
Are they the ones riding
There's
the
camels in
camels?
the foreground. There's camels.
Yeah, we see three
That's the
camels that we
assumption.
are supposed to assume were the ones that the three wise men
Okay, I thought they were
rode.
just
Like
generic camels.
assuming
Okay.
assuming it was taken by boat, what would be the purpose of that? Why build the shrine in Bethlehem when you can just build it around where it lays?
Maybe it was picked up by a Christian.
They
Sorry,
didn't
what?
exist.
What?
No, no, stay with me, stay with me.
No, okay, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Let's.
This is the
There's
patented
another
Sam's gonna keep
hotel
digging.
room. There's another hotel room to caveman times. Someone went through there, found it by accident, and was like,
Mhm,
"Oh, I've
mhm.
been possessed by the thing now."
Uh-huh.
But they, being someone from the future, were also just like really Christian. And we've seen through Joy that the person carrying it can sort of influence. So they were just like, okay, well,
Hmm.
my subconscious is saying that the most important place for this star to go is Jesus Town, Bethlehem.
I mean, it
There you
is
go, bish
clear
bash bosh.
the doctor does make a reference to that's why the inn was full. Because obviously if you have a time hotel, there are gonna be
Yeah.
people who are gonna want to
Hmm.
be there for that. And in fact, I saw on the TARDIS wiki, Voyage of the Damned references that the Doctor at some point was present for the birth of Christ. So there's a
Okay.
tie-in.
Right. So remember how I said earlier that there's like, you know, a strong implication of the Jesus of it all?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's more credence to that idea than we thought.
Well, it could
Anyway,
just be some. It could just be a case of the Doctor fucking with people like he
that's
loves
true.
to do. Like
Yeah.
if you can't always take what's rule one, as popularized by Stephen Moffat. Rule one: the Doctor lies.
Yeah.
Why aren't
Yeah.
we
Fair enough.
singing the praises of that quote? That's a good quote, isn't it? And a good rule that was implemented.
I don't remember that, but I'll assume it wasn't great.
I'm sure there's probably some fucking comic that's like, and this is the story of how Jesus is not the Son of God, but is some form of alien or has like space juice in his butt, and
All right.
that's
Well,
what gave him miracle powers.
What?
Jesus Christ has his own entry on the TARDIS wiki. Let's see if
Yeah,
there's
of course it
anything.
does.
Holy
Oh,
fuck!
How long? It does have so much fucking shit on it.
Oh my god. Okay. Apparently, the Time Lords were aware of Jesus.
okay.
Sure.
Um. Okay. There's nothing. There's nothing here that suggests there's some alien quality to the character. So the extended media hasn't done that yet.
Well, I mean, presumably that's just because it's like
It's very
don't
hard
want to
to
touch,
do.
don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Mm,
You can
Presumably,
take
yeah.
Thor and put him on the fucking Avengers. You can make a cartoon with Danny DeVito about Hercules, but God forbid you even think about doing a thing with Jesus.
Yeah. Um. I don't know if that's the appropriate way to end this conversation, but is there any other thing we want to talk about with this episode?
Actually,
um.
so
Yeah. Go ahead.
there was a thing I thought of earlier when we were
Thank God. Go
discussing
ahead.
it. Um, it's not really about the episode as such, but it did. I did when we were talking about COVID. There was a part of me that was like, how big of a deal was COVID in the Doctor Who universe?
Mm,
Yeah, I did look that
Because
up
like
briefly. There's like something. There
we're
was a
not.
background reference to it in one of the Flux episodes, but I
Yeah,
don't think it
like
was
like
that
it
prevalent.
clearly happened, but like my thing is just like for us in the real world, yeah,
Yeah,
a global pandemic that like killed a whole bunch of people. That's a big fucking deal. that like it just spread so fast so quickly and became such a big thing that everyone had to worry about all the fucking time.
Mm.
But like in the Doctor Who universe, you've been invaded by aliens like 5 times a year on average. So
You
like
betcha.
Oh, good.
is there a part of the universe where you're just like, I mean, this isn't good, but like thank God it's only a fucking disease.
Oh, fucking hell.
What?
What?
I don't know if this is good. So the only in-show reference to it is that in The Vanquishers, which is the final story of Flux, there's a poster in one of the background shots that says "Hands Face Spread," which is clearly just there because it was part of the real-world location that they shot at, and isn't a
Yeah.
thing that the show implemented specifically. In the extended media, however, there are heaps of instances where the Doctor has straight up been aware of COVID the whole
That's right.
time.
Right.
There was that video like that Jodie Whittaker recorded in character.
Oh, that's not the worst of it. Apparently, the
Like, yeah,
first
no, that I'm
Doctor
sure
knew.
that's the tip of the iceberg. I'm assuming.
The first Doctor knew that COVID was happening. The first Doctor was aware of COVID. He alluded to
When
the
the hell did
pandemic when Dodo Chaplet noticed that Londoners in 2023 were wearing face masks in the audio story The Demon Song. The third Doctor seemingly divulged the virus's eventual existence to Joe Grant and the Brigadier in the 1970s. The 10th Doctor warned the 2000s hailing Donna Noble not to look up any documentation from 2020, knowing that something, quote unquote, crazy was set to happen. That's a good way of describing it. Crazy?
Yeah, it was pretty wild, huh? Good lord. Ugh.
I don't know how to feel about that.
It's not as bad as I mean, granted, I haven't listened to the story, but there's apparently some Big Finish story where the Third Doctor kind of embraces eco-fascism and says, yeah, diseases are bad, but sometimes nature does need to reset itself.
There's also a prose story where two of the Doctor's companions, fucking hell, two of the Doctor's companions, how do I best phrase this? They joined the peaceful protests after the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah. I mean, that's anytime Doctor Who tries to do recent real world history, it's never going to go
Mm,
well.
no. Oh, the only other pandemic reference I
Like
can
you,
find from like in the show is in the church on Ruby Road. Ruby lists the pandemic among stuff that she's gone through recently. So
hmm,
that was the first time it was like explicitly mentioned in the script.
but like, can't you just so clearly see the Doctor in New York
Mm.
on September of 2001 being like, no, we can't do anything. It's a fixed point in time.
Well, don't forget, one of the ways we're introduced to the character in 2005 is that Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor was present for the Kennedy assassination.
Speaking of
Mm,
which,
Yes,
that's
yes,
referenced,
it is.
because I get the joke, and it is darkly funny in its own way, but that was kind of fucked. I don't know about either of you. Have either of you seen the Zapruder film?
No,
Do you know what that looked like?
I'm glad to not know.
so what's this referring to? Sorry,
It's the amateur short film that was taken of the actual assassination, and
the Kennedy assassination.
yes, the Kennedy
Yes,
No, it's the
assassination.
okay.
film of the Lincoln assassination, Sweeting. The film of the Lincoln
I
assassination.
There are so many assassinations that could have been like presidential assassination or just assassination in general. It could have been the Luigi Mangione shit. It could have been the Trump assassination attempt. I'd like
No, so if
Just clarifying, we are talking about the Kennedy assassination.
There's the bit in the only two assassinations that are listed in the episode as like hotel doors are Kennedy and Lincoln, which is why I was saying
Yes.
that.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yes,
right.
it's the film of the Kennedy assassination, and it's pretty
No love for Garfield.
sorry,
No love for Garfield.
I'm not
His
sure what that,
assassination doesn't get a look in.
as in President Garfield.
Yes, he was assassinated.
Oh,
It just doesn't get talked about nearly as much as Lincoln or Kennedy.
Well,
right.
it was boring, right? Like, was it just a poison? I don't know. I heard about something regarding how he actually.
I'm not sure how it happened, actually.
But yeah, no, this Fruita film, it's full on. It will shock you.
That's a glowing review.
I mean,
it just
Also,
Would it?
I'm not proud of this, by the way, but I've tried to type in President Garfield on Wikipedia, and the first thing I typed in for some reason was Andrew Garfield, and I'm not proud of that.
hey, at least you can just type in Garfield
I,
Mondays.
it feels weird to say, but I feel like I don't think I'd be shocked by the footage. Maybe like grossed out by it, but like
Yeah, I
I
mean,
know what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna be
yeah,
surprised when it happens.
I just don't, because it's more graphic than I think people would expect. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah, like he didn't have a brain anymore afterwards.
Yeah.
Like it was just gone.
Oh, yeah. No, I heard about the Garfield assassination. He gets shot in the chest a bunch and doesn't die immediately. He's taken to a hospital. They don't have X-rays, so Alexander Graham Bell has a primitive metal detector. He tries to search for the bullet. He's unsuccessful. Doctors dig around for the bullet with unwashed hands. He gets an infection and dies that way.
Oh God.
Hmm. I mean,
Fascinating.
technically, that was also the problem with Lincoln. Technically, what killed Lincoln was they botched getting the bullet out.
Well, yeah, sure.
It would have
I'd
killed
believe that.
him anyway if they didn't try and get it out. But
It was the surgery that got him in the end. Goodness me.
Is this
Anyway, that was a bit of a
really quick for the just for the listeners? Is this a fun conversation to listen to post Christmas?
I mean,
dear.
considering I'm like a good 25% of the listener base, I'd enjoyed listening to this a second time.
Okay, just checking because like it feels like we've long past discussing the episode, and now we're just talking about real world events and assassinations and harrowing footage that might traumatize people if they go to watch it.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Point is, Doctor Who is best off avoiding
Mm,
recent events as much as it can because it
agree.
never goes well.
That being said, and as we've always said, it should absolutely talk about current relevant socio-political issues by all
Yep.
means, as good sci-fi should.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
this is not the same thing.
I mean, I think
Irish
the whole
reunification of 2024. We got like 4 days left. Or data's wrong. We've already messed the Bell riots.
Oh dear.
I think look, honestly, given the way it was incorporated, it didn't bother me too much. The COVID of it all, I thought it worked well enough, and as
Yeah,
grim
it's fine in
as
the
it was, like
context
for
of the
me
story. It's
personally,
just
I
when you
wasn't.
start.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
like we were mainly discussing that in terms of like the other ways that in like the extended media
Oh
these kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
in this episode it was
yeah.
done
That
pretty tastefully and pretty well.
yeah. Um, and yeah, that whole Kennedy Lincoln joke that I didn't mind it, but it threw me a little bit, just a little bit. Good Lord. Anyway, um, I don't know if there's anything else to discuss. I think we've covered it all.
I think I've said my lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
This is interesting. I still think I'm uncertain what specific score I'm gonna give this one. Does anyone else want to go first?
I'm feeling a 7, maybe a 7.5.
I'll probably give it a 6. I think the bits that I like about it, I really, really liked. A lot of the first half of it in particular, and I like the way the sentimentality is employed, even at the ending. But because the ending wasn't as carefully constructed as it should have been, and because it's the ending, that does let down a bit for me. So yeah, there's bits I love about it, but there's also bits that don't quite get there. But I appreciate the whole thing nonetheless. So yeah, I'll give it.
I'm also going to go with 7. I think for me, I enjoyed heaps of the opening like 2 acts way too much for me to put it significantly lower than that.
They were pretty damn good.
Yeah, and I think that my initial concerns, not all of them have been addressed or like improved by this discussion, but I do think I am more accepting of how the whole thing wrapped up now than I was before we started talking about this. So there's that.
Sure.
All right, that's a Christmas special completely done. We still have a few more episodes of our regular podcast to upload for the year. They'll be coming out in the next few weeks or so. Sam, presumably nothing to plug. Is there anything else you want to just say now that we'll give you the time to say something? Now that you've already mentioned Star Trek Nemesis, so anything else?
Yeah, it's bad.
Great.
It's just Wrath of Khan, but worse.
Oh, great.
Yeah, like it's like beat for beat. It's the same fucking story, but with none of the actual emotional weight. Got Tom Hardy being a bald little twink in it, I guess, if
Tom
that does
Hardy's in it?
something for you. But yeah, no, he's the main bad guy. It's like one of his first movie roles.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
when did it come out?
2002.
Oh wow, that's more recent than I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it
I
was
think
the
I got done with
last.
them by the late 90s.
No, well, TNG ended early 90s, but the movies were like coming out of every couple of years after that. And Nemesis didn't come out until after Voyager ended, which was 2000 or 2001, I think.
Right. Very well.
Well, that was time well spent.
Yeah. I mean, not
Next
for
time,
me. I watched a bad movie.
well, at least you got to
Could
vent
have,
for a bit on our dime.
yeah. I could have spent my time wisely in watching the original series. Oh no, wait. There's
You've
like
already done
20
that.
good episodes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You know, no one's forcing you to do this, right?
I am. I'm forcing me to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got to commit. I can empathize with that.
Like I've gotten this far. I've got to watch it all, even though I know like shit like Discovery and Picard are on the horizon for
Yeah,
me.
I was gonna say you yourself have been incredibly vocal that like it's been ages since there's been a properly good like the Orville is the best Star Trek show that's come about
It's.
in ages.
I mean, Lower Decks also finished recently, and that's also really good because
Is that the
it's like
animated one?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of the two animated ones. The other one's Prodigy, which I haven't watched yet.
Right.
I think I keep confusing those two. Is the Awful the one with the
Seth
trans
MacFarlane.
coming out narrative? Is that the Orville or is that
Yes,
the Lower Deck?
that's one of the plots in it. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Time on the podcast, we will be taking a look at The Sound of Drums, getting back into the end of season 3. Not too long to go.
The only good one of that three-parter.
You'll have to wait and see if we concur.
Part 1 and 2 do not need to be full episodes.
That's
Again,
proud.
you'll have to see if we agree.
I'm not
But
in
until
those
then,
ones. So I
Yeah,
have to make my opinions known now.
I know. Okay,
Fair enough.
and I don't want to spoil our opinions because we've already recorded those episode discussions, but we're on the same page here. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
I'm sad.
and hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas and their holidays.
Yes.
And we hope 2025 is a good year for all concerned, except the bigots.
Everybody else have a great year. Thanks for joining us once again on this mad adventure. I'm in space. And Old Lang Syne.
Old Lang Syne. Motherfucker.